Imagine holding a ticket to a crypto revolution or a ticking time bomb. Each month, a digital lockbox quietly releases its treasure, 1 billion XRP tokens. Critics scream centralized manipulation, supporters whisper about engineered scarcity, and beneath it all moves billions of dollars, legal chaos, and a race for Wall Street's blessing. So, is Ripple's escrow system the engine for the next massive crypto boom, or an invisible weight pulling XRP's price under? Welcome to the pulse-pounding showdown at the heart of digital money's future. Today we break down the drama, the numbers, and the powerful incentives fueling Ripple's high-stakes escrow experiment. Buckle in. By the end of this video, you'll know why the next 12 months could define not just XRP, but the shape of money itself. Let's rewind. Why does everyone from Bitcoin maximalists to Wall Street giants care so much about Ripple's escrow account? The XRP ledger is a decentralized blockchain, but with a twist. Back in 2017, Ripple, yes, the company, not the coin, locked away 55 billion XRP tokens in a public, cryptographically sealed escrow system. The pitch? To build trust and address growing fears about sudden floods of new coins crashing the price. After all, XRP's total supply is capped at 100 billion. Over half, 56 billion, was already circulating. But Ripple itself still controlled the rest. That's right, nearly half of all XRP sitting in digital vaults. Each month, this escrow unlocks exactly 1 billion XRP. But here's the kicker. Ripple doesn't dump all of it on the open market. Instead, most months see only about 200 to 300 million XRP actually used. The rest? It's resealed into escrow for another day. This process is public, tracked on-chain, and hailed by supporters as a model for supply discipline. So, what's Ripple actually doing with these monthly XRP releases? Three main things: rewarding market makers who provide liquidity, powering Ripple's flagship on-demand liquidity, ODL, service for cross-border payments, and funding ecosystem growth. Think grants to new XRP projects, partnerships, and tech upgrades. The leftover tokens go right back into the vault. It sounds responsible, but then why is Ripple constantly caught in the crossfire of debate? On one side, critics. They call the escrow a thinly veiled scheme for centralized control. To them, the fact that a single company can wield nearly half the supply makes XRP a hostage to Ripple's strategy. Bitcoin maximalists are particularly scathing. One notorious tweet reads, "Ripple can dump the price of XRP whenever it wants. You call that decentralized?" Even inside the XRP community, you'll find skeptics. Some believe the drip feed of new tokens, month after month, adds slow but constant sell pressure, capping price growth. Others point to uncertainty. What happens when all the escrow is gone? Or worse, if Ripple changes course and dumps massive amounts? But flip the coin, and you'll find die-hard XRP bulls arguing the opposite. Their case? The escrow actually starves the market, creating engineered scarcity. As real-world utility for XRP ramps up, especially through ODL payment channels and possible ETF inflows, demand could outstrip Ripple's cautious releases. If that happens, the supply squeeze could explode prices, as buyers scramble for the remaining tokens. The analyst behind the All Things XRP community says, Ripple's monthly system isn't market flooding, it's market discipline. With less and less left in escrow, the final unlock could trigger a price shock. Ripple CTO David Schwartz is blunt. Everything is tracked on-chain. The process is transparent. This isn't hidden control, it's predictable, accountable, and public. Yet the shade of centralization won't fade. Even today, Ripple owns about 36.5 billion XRP in escrow, down from the original 55 billion, and hovers around 46% of the total supply. The scale is jaw-dropping. Imagine Apple personally owning nearly half of all US dollars, then releasing a fresh slice each month. Would you trust them not to move markets? So let's get clear. Does the escrow system help XRP's price or undermine it? Let's look at the data. In Q2 2025, Ripple's on-demand liquidity, ODL service, saw a 35% spike in transaction volume, hitting $13.5 billion monthly. That's not just speculation. That's a tidal wave of real-world payments, often settling cross-border transactions for banks, payment providers, and even national governments. Ripple loves to point to this as proof that XRP is more than just a trader's plaything. Meanwhile, the ecosystem is buzzing. Just in May 2025, the XRPL Foundation injected $2.3 million into grants for 15 new projects building on the XRP ledger. Think DeFi apps, tokenized assets, even AI integration, a deliberate push to keep the XRP ecosystem competitive as the crypto landscape evolves. But there's another side to the ledger, the legal minefield. The ongoing SEC lawsuit against Ripple has racked up a staggering $200 million in legal costs for the company. Since 2020, the fight over whether XRP is a security has sapped investor confidence, hampered U.S. adoption, and triggered wild price swings. Many argue the escrow's supply discipline means little if regulatory bans lock out the largest markets. Regulatory clarity is still looming. As Linda Jones, a respected financial analyst, puts it, regulatory clarity in key jurisdictions is crucial for XRP's long-term success. The day the SEC gives the green light, or slams the door, could define whether XRP remains a contender or fades into crypto history. Yet, in the background, a new storm brews. BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, and other Wall Street giants are jockeying for position, racing to launch the first U.S. XRP ETF. Analysts say approval odds have surged to 80% by the end of 2025. Bloomberg's own experts peg it at 85% now that the SEC has new leadership. If an ETF is approved, institutional capital could pour in, just as the escrow nears depletion. What happens if market demand suddenly leaps, but Ripple's steady hand keeps supply tight? It's a high-stakes chess game. If Ripple maintains discipline, escrow releases shrink, and real-world demand keeps climbing, the setup for a supply squeeze is real. But if any misstep, whether regulatory, technological, or competitive, slows demand or spooks investors, the excess supply becomes an anchor, not a springboard. And what about the critics demanding a more radical solution? Some XRP holders want Ripple to go further, unlock all tokens at once and gift them to ecosystem builders. Others want to burn the entire remaining escrow, erasing nearly 36.5 billion XRP from existence and instantly turbocharging scarcity. But Ripple's CTO, David Schwartz, warns against quick fixes. He cites the infamous 2019 case when the Stellar Foundation burned half its XLM supply, 55 billion tokens, hoping for a price pop. What happened? The price barely budged. Schwartz concludes, a burn isn't a miracle. Sometimes it just wastes resources. Traders, too, are divided. John Smith, a hard-nosed crypto trader, says, XRP's volatility makes it high risk, high reward. If the escrow gamble pays off, you'll see fireworks. But if not, the downside could be brutal. And then there's the ever-present competition. Ripple's not the only blockchain targeting global payments. Each week brings new challengers boasting faster speeds, lower fees, or a more decentralized approach. Ripple's answer? Keep innovating. In June, the XRP ledger is expected to roll out a major upgrade, AI integration, and new DeFi features. The XRPL Foundation's recent grants are already seeding this next wave of innovation. Kathy Brown, a respected tech advisor, says, Ripple's enterprise focus gives them a real edge, but only if they keep moving forward. Meanwhile, all eyes are on June's rumored market catalysts, potential ETF news, a major Fed policy update, and the anticipated XRPL upgrades. Martin Heisbuck of Uphold puts it succinctly. If the right dominoes fall, XRP could break out in ways most investors aren't ready for. Yet the risks are real. Even market analysts wary of crypto hype point to the centralization and regulatory opacity as red flags. Kevin Green warns, the outcome of Ripple's SEC case will significantly impact investor sentiment. So, here's the crux. For all the optimism about a supply-driven price spike, the clock is ticking. Ripple's escrow is shrinking. Real-world demand is climbing. Wall Street is knocking at the door. But legal and technological hurdles loom, and fierce competitors circle. What happens if all these forces, scarce supply, surging utility, ETF-driven demand, and regulatory uncertainty, collide in the next 12 months? Will XRP become the backbone of next-gen banking, or is the escrow system a time bomb waiting to detonate? One thing is clear. Everything depends on the next moves, by Ripple, by regulators, and perhaps by the market itself. As escrow barrels towards zero and global finance eyes its next leap, the stakes have never been higher. But before we can predict the outcome, we need to dig even deeper. What do insiders, skeptics, and global banks really expect? Which risks are paper tigers, and which could kill XRP's momentum overnight? And could Ripple's carefully crafted supply strategy, its grand escrow experiment, ultimately backfire or spark the decade's biggest crypto bull run? Let's pull back the curtain and find out. So now that we've explored the roots of Ripple's XRP escrow, how it works, why it stirs controversy, and the real-world battlegrounds. Let's turn to the future. Because make no mistake, the next 2 years could be the most dramatic in XRP's entire history. The central question is looming ever larger. Will Ripple's carefully rationed supply strategy create the conditions for an explosive XRP price surge, or lay the groundwork for a sudden collapse if things go wrong? Let's break it down scenario by scenario, based on hard data, expert predictions, and a few jaw-dropping possibilities. First, the bullish vision. Imagine this. By the end of 2025, XRP ETF approval is fast-tracked, with giants like BlackRock and Franklin Templeton pouring institutional money into the market. According to Bloomberg analysts, the odds of an XRP ETF gaining the green light this year are already north of 80%. If that happens, we could see billions of new dollars chasing a supply that's not only fixed, but increasingly constrained as the escrow runs dry. Demand isn't just a theory. Ripple's on-demand liquidity, ODL, has already grown by 35% in transaction volume just in the last quarter, hitting a staggering $13.5 billion monthly. Real banks, real payments, real utility. And the XRPL Foundation just pumped another $2.3 million into new projects expanding XRP's use cases. Think DeFi, AI integration, and cross-border microtransactions. If regulatory clarity follows, especially in the US and Europe, the sky doesn't just look blue, it's practically glowing. Regulatory clarity in key jurisdictions is crucial for XRP's long-term success, says respected financial analyst Linda Jones. This isn't just about hype anymore. It's about building trust with regulators, banks, and investors, transforming XRP from a speculative gamble into an infrastructure asset for global finance. But even in this rosy scenario, there's a wild card, the shrinking escrow itself. With less than 37 billion XRP left in escrow as of June 2025 and a fixed monthly unlock, Ripple's ability to influence the market is steadily declining. Some community visionaries even talk about the day when Ripple's last escrow tranche is released. What then? If adoption keeps climbing while the remaining supply gets bought up, it could trigger a classic supply squeeze, the rocket fuel for price explosions crypto veterans dream about. Now let's slam on the brakes, because the flip side is just as real, and maybe even more urgent to understand. Suppose ETF approval stalls, or the SEC hits Ripple with more litigation. Let's not forget, Ripple's legal fight with the SEC has already cost them roughly $200 million in direct expenses. Regulatory uncertainty is exhausting, and the threat of new restrictions could easily scare off institutions that are just starting to show interest. As Kevin Green, market analyst, points out, the outcome of Ripple's SEC case will significantly impact investor sentiment. And competition isn't standing still. Stellar, Algorand, even traditional giants like Visa are all racing to dominate the same cross-border payments market that Ripple and XRP want to own. If these rivals out-innovate or outmaneuver Ripple, by offering faster settlements, lower fees, or clearer compliance, the window for XRP dominance could slam shut in an instant. There's also a third, stealthier risk: technological stagnation. Ripple's CTO David Schwartz is betting big on XRPL network upgrades, especially automated market makers, AMMs, and decentralized finance features. If these deliver, XRP could morph into the backbone of a next-gen financial system. But if delays, bugs, or lack of developer interest crop up, XRP risks missing the boat as newer, nimbler chains take the spotlight. And let's not ignore one last major threat, the so-called price suppression theory. Critics, especially Bitcoin maximalists, argue that as long as Ripple holds a giant stash of XRP, even with escrow limits, they can influence price with every unlock cycle. XRP will not move past a 2-digit price even if Bitcoin claims $100 million, scoffs Rajat Soni, a prominent crypto skeptic. Is this just FUD, or is there a kernel of truth? Well, the numbers speak for themselves. Ripple rarely releases more than 200-300 million XRP to the market each month, often returning the majority to escrow. Data shows most XRP that enters circulation powers ODL corridors, incentivizes market makers, or funds ecosystem growth. It's not a fire hose, it's more like a controlled drip. Still, as long as that lever exists, the debate over centralization and manipulation isn't going away soon. Let's game out the possible endgames. Scenario 1, XRP as the Phoenix ETF approval supercharges demand. ODL and global banking adoption multiply. The last escrowed tokens unlock by late 2027. Supply can't keep up with relentless institutional and retail buys. Result? A supply shock, rapid price appreciation, and XRP cementing itself as a foundational digital asset, not a speculative afterthought. Think of it. The moment when Ripple's supply is finally distributed, and XRP is truly decentralized for the first time in its history. Scenario 2. Regulatory and competitive storm. Ripple loses key legal battles or faces heavy restrictions in the US/EU. Competing payment networks leapfrog Ripple's tech, capturing critical partnerships. ETF dreams fade, institutions pull out, and price stagnates or even collapses as confidence evaporates. Here, the remaining escrow becomes a slow drip of pain, with Ripple forced to sell to fund operations, creating sustained downward price pressure. Scenario 3. The middle ground. Legal clarity emerges, but adoption takes time. Ripple wins some battles, loses others. ETF approval passes, but volumes underwhelm at first. Technological upgrades roll out, but developer momentum is slow. In this world, XRP could grind steadily higher, rewarding patient holders with gradual gains but never delivering the legendary moonshot some expect. Maybe a secret fact helps frame the stakes. Did you know that when Stellar attempted its massive supply burn in 2019, destroying over half of XLM's supply, the price barely moved? Despite popular belief, simple token burns or supply crunches don't guarantee price explosions. As Ripple CTO David Schwartz points out, any attempt to mass burn XRP would likely have little to no effect, aside from removing tools Ripple could use to incentivize growth. It's about utility and demand, not just optics. So, what does all this mean for you, the savvy crypto enthusiast, investor, or even just a curious bystander? First, recognize that Ripple's escrow isn't a simple villain or hero. It's a tool, a double-edged sword that's controlled volatility and restored some trust, but also preserved Ripple's market influence. As each monthly unlock ticks by and the escrow slowly empties, the balance of power shifts more and more to the open market. The big question: will XRP's utility and real adoption accelerate fast enough to meet the moment when supply is finally fully released? If you're considering XRP for your portfolio, understand the real-world forces at play. Don't just chase hype or fall for doom and gloom narratives. Track Ripple's legal battles, ETF movement, and actual usage stats. XRP's fate isn't just a technical question. It's a collision of regulation, utility, and market psychology. XRP's price volatility makes it a high-risk, high-reward investment, as crypto trader John Smith bluntly puts it. Volatility cuts both ways. Want to take advantage of this insight? Here are 3 practical steps. 1. Watch the ETF race like a hawk. If major approvals land, that's your cue. Institutional money is inbound, and price moves could get wild, fast. 2. Follow ODL and ecosystem growth. Are remittance volumes exploding? Is the XRPL developer ecosystem attracting serious projects and capital? These are real signals of rising demand. 3. Keep tabs on regulatory clarity, especially in the US, Europe, and Asia. Favorable news can unlock the next phase of mainstream adoption, while fresh legal troubles could spook the market. And always, always manage your risk. No asset, no matter how hyped or hated, is too big to stumble. Diversification and discipline are your friends. As we wrap up, let's return to our original riddle. Will Ripple's escrow strategy be remembered as the masterstroke that starved the market, primed XRP for a supply squeeze, and launched a new era of crypto adoption? Or will it mark the era when centralization fears and regulatory headwinds snuffed out XRP's shot at greatness? The truth is, nobody, not analysts, not Ripple insiders, not even the most plugged-in whales, can say for certain. What we do know is that the escrow's days are numbered. With each passing month, Ripple's grip loosens, and the market edges closer to a true test of supply, demand, and trust. If the stars align, legal clarity, real-world utility, and an ETF gateway, XRP could become the ultimate crypto comeback story. But if even one pillar falters, the consequences could be swift and severe. Here's the secret most casual observers miss. The battle for XRP's future won't be won in courtrooms or on crypto Twitter. It'll be settled by users, institutions, and builders actually using XRP to move money, unlock new markets, and solve real problems. The escrow was never the endgame. It's just been buying time for XRP to prove itself. So what do you think? Is Ripple's escrow the quiet catalyst for a supply-driven moonshot or a ticking time bomb? Drop your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments below. If you found this deep dive helpful, give us a like and subscribe for more clear-eyed analysis of crypto's biggest stories. And make sure to hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss our next episode, where we'll reveal which digital